This might be the weirdest deck to ever win a GOAT format tournament, but I wanted to find out if this deck might be a new force to be reckoned with in the GOAT format meta, or if its success was all just a fluke. So I went straight to the source to find out. I talked with Mr. Big Noodle, the man who took this deck to a first place finish. But unfortunately, I made one big mistake. None of the audio actually got recorded during my 45-minute interview with him, so instead I'm going to do my best to summarize the key points that he made during our conversation. Now, right off the bat, one thing that Noodle made clear to me is that this isn't actually a zombie deck. Yes, it plays some zombies, but what's more interesting is the zombies that it doesn't play. No Ryukoki, no Vampire Lord, and not even a Spirit Reaper. The lack of quality targets for Pyramid Turtle really baffled me, but Noodle had a good explanation for this. So in order to play around Nobleman of Crossout, he would never set his Pyramid Turtle, and none of his opponents would ever attack it, as this would normally just be a bad play. So if no one ever lets you search with Pyramid Turtle, you can actually just get greedy and cut all of your Pyramid Turtle targets that would be dead draws, like Ryukoki. Fiend Mega Cyber, however, was absolutely sick, and Noodle said that one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they try to improve his deck is cutting that particular card. Gravekeeper Spy is everywhere in GOAT format, and Fiend Mega Cyber is a surprisingly strong counter to that card. Notice that we also have a Ninja Grandmaster and of course Zaborg, so needless to say, this deck is quite happy to face off against Gravekeeper Spies. But if we're not a zombie deck, then what exactly are we? Well, Noodle made sure to emphasize that this is a Cyber-Stein combo deck first and foremost. Zombies just happen to be an engine that fills the role of both life point preservation with Pyramid Turtle, as well as damage output with Fear from the Dark and Book of Life. The special summons with the zombie engine also provide good fodder for Zaborg, which is still a menace in GOAT format. We have a mini warrior engine as well to help push through our offense and get in some chip damage before we pop off with Stein. I think you could even add a copy of Last Will to help search for Stein, as we have Exiled Force and Tribute Monsters to trigger it. Another key card in this deck is Blackluster Soldier, a pretty uncommon choice in a zombie deck, but definitely an MVP for any deck that is looking to attack for big damage. Noodle said that the side was thrown together and can definitely be changed, and my opinion is that it would be fine to make some small changes to the spell and trap lineup as well. Jar of Greed is not mandatory, nor is the third copy of Trap Dust Shoot. Maybe you cut one of those for Last Will or for another Dust Tornado. That's your call. Let me know in the comments what changes you found to be helpful for this deck. From watching the replays from Mr. Big Noodle, you can really get a sense of what this deck is all about. Taking all of these different pieces, the zombies, the warriors, and the Cyber-Stein, to string together 8,000 damage before your opponent is able to get their own strategy going. And the fact that we're playing so many unusual card choices makes that objective a bit easier, as our opponents just don't know what they're supposed to be playing around. And now for my own personal rant. Guys, this is not the first time that we've seen decks like this do well in GOAT format, not by any means. Alefiatu really put this strategy on the map with his multiple wins with Stein Monarch back in the day. Then we had Don't Copy recently win a tournament with a similar sort of Mataza the Zapper Stein deck about 6 months ago. And now we have this Zombie Stein deck going undefeated through a pretty tough bracket. Both Mr. Big Noodle and I believe that this is not a fluke, and he played this deck because he wanted to prove that. In spite of this Stein hybrid strategy winning several tournaments over multiple years, we still don't really see it played that much in GOAT format. Why? Well, I believe that it has to do with human psychology. We like to classify things, and decks in GOAT format are supposed to fall into one of three categories: aggro, control, and combo. Well, which one of these is Zombie Stein or Stein Monarch? It's hard to say. When I originally profiled Stein Monarch on this channel a while ago, I actually described it as being all three. And I think these hybrid strategies are great for players who like the flexibility of multiple game plans, but they haven't really caught on. You look at your standard Chaos deck, and every card has a really obvious purpose. The deck looks clean and streamlined. Same with most Warrior decks. And in contrast, these Stein decks often look ugly and confused. There are a lot of weird one-ofs and various card choices that look questionable. Now, neither Noodle or I think this deck list is perfect by any means, but we also think this strategy is worth trying. I think too many people forget that Cyber-Stein decks absolutely dominated 2006 in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, to the point that Cyber-Stein became the first emergency ban to ever happen in Yu-Gi-Oh! The card has certainly proved itself over the ages, is what I'm saying. And of course you can build a deck that is kind of all in on Cyber-Stein as a win condition, but with the 5,000 life point requirement, this can be risky, of course. With the hybrid strategy, you get to hedge your bets a bit. Most decks in GOAT format right now lack the proper defense to really deal with a Cyber-Stein OTK, but if you get aggroed and you can't use your Cyber-Stein, it's nice to have a backup plan. I know it's easy to take a quick look at the meta and say, oh look, Chaos just doesn't lose to anything. But when you talk to the people who are playing Cyber-Stein decks like this, you hear a very different story. Lesson learned here, going out on a limb and trying something crazy can really pay off. And if you want to learn more about why these Stein hybrid decks are so good in GOAT format, then you need to watch this video right here.